Hi everybody, my name is Kylie and I am one of the co-directors of The Paper Birds, and I've invited a lovely chap named Joe Price to join me for a little pre-recorded interview chat, because Joe is, or has been for the past two shows that we've made, The Paper Birds lighting designer. And I've had a few requests from a few different schools who have got A-level students who might be following the tech path, who've been asking me, what kind of things ought they to include in a piece that is lit in the style of The Paper Birds? So, Joe, hello.
Hi, Kylie. Thanks for having me.
No, you're very welcome. Where are you today, Joe?
I'm in Bristol, which I believe is where you are too.
It is, yeah. We are.
We could have almost done this. We could have almost done this together, socially distanced, but
could have. Okay, so you have lit the past two Paper Birds shows. So most recently, Ask Me Anything, which it seems crazy that we were actually touring that this year in 2020. We were touring it when the lockdown happened, and we just had to pack up the van and go home. So you lit that show, and you lit our previous show for that, Goldfish Bowl, which didn't go on tour. It did quite a long stint in London and was made in collaboration with poet Caleb Femi and rapper, producer, Lex and more. So you've made those two shows with us. Do you want to just talk a little bit about how you collaborate with the Paper Birds? At what point do you come in? How does it work?
Yeah. So broadly speaking, not just including Paper Bird shows, the point at which I come in varies tremendously. I've had projects where I've been involved months in advance, kind of right from the initial concepts kind of point, and in stark contrast, an email's come through saying, are you available next week to light something or whatever, and then it's just kind of like, you kind of get a very specific brief. It needs to be bright at this moment and contained at this moment and blue at this moment, and you just kind of roll with it, really. There's not enough time to offer alternative thoughts and collaborate so much. But no, generally with the Paper Birds, it's been the former of those two, which is definitely preferable. So for Goldfish Bowl, I was involved a very, very, very long time in advance. I think about 6 months, when you guys were still doing some R&D, some research and development, and kind of what we created then was worlds apart from the final product. And that's great to be involved at that kind of stage, really, because you can, people's roles at that point kind of go out the window a little bit. It's just kind of everybody working together to be playful, throwing ideas around, no idea is too silly. And everybody just collaborating and working together to experiment and find solutions to ideas and problems. And at that point there'll be lots of conversations with the rest of the creative team, particularly kind of the director and the designer for the set. If I'm involved that early, then there's a real opportunity to kind of incorporate light within the overall kind of concept and design, rather than just kind of throwing it on top of a finished product, as I might have to do if I was only brought in with a week or two to go until the show opens.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really interesting. So you have, with our shows, you have been involved early on, but from what I've seen anyway, when I've been in the rehearsal room, like it ramps up obviously towards the end at production week.
Definitely.
You want to talk to us a little bit about what is a production week like? So for example, most recently we were really lucky that Ask Me Anything was commissioned by Live Theatre in Newcastle. So bearing in mind, like half of our team was Bristol based, we all relocated, we schlepped up to Newcastle, and we were so welcome in that theatre, and they were so lovely to give us their space, that we could really like bed in the show and make it work. So do you want to talk about what your process is? When was it a week that we were there lighting it? Few days,
might have been 2 weeks, I think, but that included kind of the latter stages of a couple of dress
Awesome.
runs and
Yeah.
previews and all that sort of stuff.
What do you do when you get in the room? So the lanterns are hung, the set's up. What's your approach then?
Yeah, sure. Well, just to say that lighting's kind of a funny one and a little bit unique compared to some of the other creative practices of making a show, where it pretty much all gets done in that kind of final few days or week or whatever of being in the room. You can do a fair amount of prep in terms of talking through ideas, and you might want to make use of some sort of 3D visualizer or something like that to create computer generated images that you can show to a director or something like that. But then it's always going to be different when you arrive into the room. And so unlike kind of the sound designers who can make all their sound effects in advance and kind of get them largely signed off, and video designers who can create all their content and again get that signed off, lighting kind of all really happens, like I say, in that last few days before you open the show. So it is, you're right, it definitely ramps up right at the end. And so my sort of what I'm up to in those last few days, if I'm lucky, then somebody's rigged all the lights for me. Sometimes I have to do that myself, and then we'll get them all focused extremely precisely. Sometimes do
you play around with that, so it's a bit of trial and error?
Absolutely, sometimes the initial focus will be kind of roughing stuff in a little bit. You might be against the clock to try and just get everything roughed in ahead of starting the technical rehearsals and stuff like that. So there's always I'm always annoying people in the venues by saying, oh, can we get the ladder out again? I just want to tweak this focus. But they understand it's important to kind of perfect all that. And then once everything's suitably positioned and focused, it's just kind of jumping on the desk. And again, sometimes I'll be programming myself, or sometimes if I'm lucky, there's someone there to do it for me, which is really beneficial, because then I can just point my focus and attention directly at what's happening on stage, rather than having to worry about what buttons I'm pressing. And again, that will initially be kind of broad brushstrokes, roughing stuff in, and then that can kind of be perfected as you rattle through the tech and get into kind of dress rehearsals and stuff. And again, that's all a collaborative process with particularly the director, and sometimes the set costume designers will chip in as well to make sure that everything's kind of working together and in sync.
Yeah, great. Cool. Thank you, Joe. Are there any like common things that you regularly do, whether that be in one of our shows or just generally throughout your practice? Like what? Yeah, if students are watching this and they're thinking, okay, so I'm going to make a piece in the style of the Paper Birds, what kind of things ought they to be including?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nearly always going to start with reading whatever kind of material you've got available. So that might be a fully formed script, or it might be something that's a little bit more conceptual and is going to get worked upon in the rehearsal room. But there's normally something that you can kind of read and react to, and the reactions there might be incredibly different between yourself and the rest of the other members of the creative team. So that's going back to the sort of R&D and stuff, that kind of early throwing around different ideas.
What if they've been present in the room the whole time? So whilst the cast, if you like, is devising the show, if the tech candidate is like there the whole time hanging out with them, so they've kind of seen the evolution of material, what could they be doing? Let's say if they've got a lesson and the guys are rehearsing a scene, what would you be doing in that instance? Yeah,
sure. So I'd be making relatively detailed little notes. either kind of on the script, or you might want to set up like a spreadsheet with different kind of scenes and moments within the show, and just making notes about kind of what's going on stage, where people are stood, what the kind of mood and atmosphere is, whether there's any moments that you kind of want to home in on and pick out and make sure that the audience are going to appreciate that. And that will basically, those notes will then form the basis of your kind of your cues and your looks. So having notes like that you can send or share with the director in particular are really helpful to get those conversations going and form the basis of what you're actually going to program on stage.
Yeah, because I'm always really like wowed that you've like already chosen cue lines and stuff, and you'll be like, oh no, it's when you say and I'm like, how does he know that? But you're on it. You are like tuned in and watching and keeping track.
Yeah, and again, they might change. I'll sort of decide roughly. I mean, sometimes it's extremely obvious. It's like, this is the start of the scene and we need to have a change of lighting there, or maybe there's like a really sort of snappy moment when we're coming out of something and moving into something else that we need a sort of quick snappy cue on. But yeah, just noting down all of your ideas, all of your reactions. Like I say, nothing's kind of too crazy, and then starting to build them into a sort of coherent structure. So I will always arrive at the sort of first tech rehearsal with a cue sheet of kind of, like I say, broad brushstrokes of what I want to program, and perhaps as important, if not more important, the lighting plan of where everything's rigged. And yeah, again, organization is so helpful as well. So I'll organize the lanterns into different groups and stuff. So we'll have my group of blues, my group of side lights in warm and side lights in cold, all of that sort of stuff, so that it's as organized and quick and easy as possible to kind of create different looks and jump between different scenes.
Yeah, great, cool. So if students are making a piece in the style of the Paper Birds, are there any must-haves? 3 or 4 things that they kind of must do if it was going to emulate our style? Yeah,
sure. I mean, some of these may be true for sort of across the board, but certainly things that I try and incorporate into the work I've done with the Paper Birds is kind of having a lot of different kind of angles of light. I personally find sort of like straight on front light to be pretty dull. So you can create something that's a lot more dynamic by playing around with sort of strong punchy backlight and side light. I'm sort of side lit by the sunshine right now, and hopefully it looks a bit more exciting. So that's really fun. And similarly, kind of light from below can create like this sort of slightly ominous, spooky look, and generate fantastic shadows across the back of the wall and the set. So that's really important. Having a lot of contrast between your different scenes and different moments. Paper Bird stuff often kind of jumps between verbatim kind of style work where you're talking to the audience, and maybe that's quite a sort of open, bright, generic sort of wash, and then kind of much more stylized, beautiful moments, perhaps with music incorporated or something like that. And that's where you kind of go a lot more deep and beautiful, and really go wild with your angles and your color.
I've noticed that the 2 shows you did for us as well, there's light within the set. So
that was going to be
you had that amazing like that flashed across, and it was like a heartbeat monitor.
Yeah, that was going to be my final point.
Was it? I stole it. Sorry.
No worries. It was sort of as a broader idea of collaboration, basically. So
okay.
Again, going back to being in the room early on, coming up with a really clear concept with the rest of the creative team, and through that making light a part of the overall concept and design, rather than, you know, just a functional thing of making sure that you can see the actors. So yeah, all of the shows I've done with you guys have had, they often call them sort of practicals, I guess. Rather than your generic sort of profile or Fresnel kind of lantern, you've got some sort of like little LED or something like that that's built into the set, and maybe the audience have no idea that it's there until it suddenly comes alive and lights up. So yeah, you mentioned in Goldfish Bowl we had this heartbeat monitor style shape of that was some pixel LED tape, which meant that we could kind of control each individual section of it and make it do this kind of little heartbeat monitor chase. That was great fun. And then in Ask Me Anything, we just had countless sort of pendant lights that you'd have hung in the ceiling in your home, and lava lamps and glitter lamps, and all sorts of
like domestic lamps, weren't they? Yeah,
absolutely. So, you know, it's a lot of fun to be able to make the world light up beyond just kind of, like I say, functionally lighting the actors. And similarly, you know, there's often opportunities there for the performers to kind of interact with the lighting. Do you know what I mean? Like an actor could go and kind of get close to a table lamp or a pendant or something like that, or react to this LED that's lighting up in the set. And that's always been a big part of my process with both Paperbirds and other work.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. And lastly, before we sign off, did you do A-level drama, or did you study drama at school? What was your like journey from school to your career now?
So I did performing arts at both sort of GCSE level and A level as well. And it was particularly in A level, I guess, that I became more aware of.
So did you follow the tech path, or did you do acting?
Well, it was kind of everybody does everything, certainly initially, but through particularly the A level course, I remember we had to do a sort of X Factor style event at the school, and so we were responsible for marketing it, and people were running the auditions and stuff, and then me and a friend took on some of the technical responsibilities, and with a lot of help from the school technician, we kind of set up a basic lighting rig, and I got to play around on a desk for the first time, and you know, was like, oh, I like this. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I want to know more. And then, went on from there to go and do an undergraduate, which was a sort of combination of arts management, sort of marketing and funding application type stuff, combined with stage management and technical elements, which, to be honest, was probably a little bit too broader spectrum, do you know what I mean? But again, you know, I was far more interested in the kind of technical elements, and got involved with some local theatres and companies, did a little bit of touring, and what they call relighting, so working kind of for a lighting designer who's got a design for a show, and it's going out on tour, but they're not going to tour with it, and it's my responsibility to kind of recreate their vision in each venue, and through that kind of really fell in love with the design concepts and of lighting, and finally then went and did a master's at the Royal Welsh College in Cardiff, to sort of specialize specifically in lighting design, and I finished that in 2015, and have pretty much solidly worked as a lighting designer since. Little bits and bobs, filling the gaps here and there. And when was it? 2017, I think I started collaborating with you guys. So good few years of Paperbirds fun.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Joe. It's a real pleasure to talk about this stuff, because you just don't talk about it, do you, when you're in the rehearsal room and you're like against the clock. So thank you so much. And I know that any students who tune in and do watch this will be so grateful that you've shared all of that info, that they can go forth and make amazing, beautiful, atmospheric theatre.
Yeah,
So,
amazing.
thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Kylie.